Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. The words of this sonnet, The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus, is, of course, inscribed on a bronze plaque on the pedestal that holds the Statue of Liberty on Liberty Island in New York, arms outstretched to welcome in emigrants to Ellis Island and the USA, and symbolizing their hopes and dreams of a better life. Welcoming the stranger into our midst, protecting and caring for them, is one of the principal values of Judaism. To be a Jew is to know the heart of the stranger. From Abraham, commanded to leave his homeland, and later warned by God that his descendants would one day be strangers in a land not their own, to Joseph, sold into slavery in Egypt, to Moses, exiled into the Midianite desert before returning to Egypt to lead his people to freedom, to the Israelites, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years before settling in a new land, the land of Canaan. To be a Jew is to know the heart of the stranger. That is why the Torah insists that the experience of the Israelites is to be retold every year and never forgotten. That is why the Torah tells us some 36 times to love the stranger, to welcome the stranger, to provide and care for the stranger, to not oppress the stranger, because we were once strangers in the land of Egypt. This commandment is mentioned more times in the Torah than any other commandment. In our Torah portion today, we read, "You shall not wrong or oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." In the next chapter, we are instructed, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt." In Leviticus chapter 19, we learn, "When strangers reside with you in your land, you shall not wrong them. The strangers who reside with you shall be to you as your citizens. You shall love each one as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I, the Eternal, am your God." And when the theme recurs in Deuteronomy, the rights of the stranger are protected by the judicial system. Decide justly between one party and another, it says, be it a fellow Israelite or a stranger. From the Bible on, through all of Jewish literature and Jewish activism, the need to protect and care for strangers, refugees, those who flee persecution and seek asylum in countries other than their own, has been a core value and instruction. Our own historical experience demands that we engage in this work. Since 1976, JCOR, the Jewish Council for Racial Equality, has worked both inside and outside the Jewish community in the UK to provide a Jewish voice on race and asylum issues. And I think you're all very familiar with Edie Friedman here. Over 100 years ago, the US Jewish community founded the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society in New York City. Last year, JCOR and HIAS joined forces to create HIAS plus JCOR. And now, in partnership in the UK, they work to engage the Jewish community in social action and social justice in the wider society, focusing on race equality and justice for refugees and asylum seekers. Their work draws on Jewish refugee experience, teaching, and tradition of Jewish social activism, and aims to create a fairer, more humane and equal multi-ethnic society. And of course, here with the asylum seeker drop-in, this is one of the great examples of doing that work. The passing of the Nationality and Borders Bill into law in 2022 and other measures such as the government's Rwanda policy, which they are debating again this week, are hugely disappointing moves, but we must not give up the fight. I encourage you to look at HIAS plus JCOR's website to find ways in which we can each help individually. What is clear from our Jewish texts and teachers is that we have an obligation to fight for the welfare and well-being of refugees and asylum seekers. This is a moral imperative. In 8 days' time, I will be going to Israel to visit family and friends, and also for a 3-day program with rabbinic colleagues from the UK. During that time, we will be meeting with people who have been affected by the devastating events of October the 7th. I was struck by a recent Radio 4 Thought for the Day by Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, in which he talked about sitting in Israel with a mother whose son had been murdered by Hamas on the morning of October the 7th. And she said to him, "He died protecting his companions. I'm definitely going to continue my volunteer role, bringing Palestinian families to their hospital appointments in Israel, and I'm going to carry on with my efforts for our shared society." The name of the NGO she works for is Humans Beyond Borders. Rabbi Wittenberg went on to say, "I'm a Jew, a rabbi. I have my loyalties, of course, as does anyone with relatives under fire. Anyone with friends of friends taken hostage must have. The Jewish community is one big, tightly knit family. I know that Palestinian families feel similar ties. Inseparable from my faith as a Jew is my loyalty to being human, the human beyond borders. It can't be otherwise when the one God whose presence I feel in my guts created all people equal in the divine image. Every life matters, and tragically, every death hurts. Even now, there are Israelis and Palestinians who stand together in affirmation of this truth. At the heart of befriending and protecting the stranger is this idea of humanity beyond borders. Parashat Kedoshim, which is right in the heart of Leviticus, begins with the words, "You shall be holy, for I, the Eternal One, your God, am holy." American rabbi and teacher Harold Schulweis she's all right. Does someone want to go out with her, actually? Thanks. So Parashat Kedoshim, in the heart of Leviticus, begins with the words, "You shall be holy, for I, the Eternal One, your God, am holy." American rabbi and teacher Harold Schulweis calls the theology of Kedoshim predicate theology. In predicate theology, we understand God not as a subject, the one who acts, but as a predicate, the action which is God-like. Instead of saying God feeds the hungry, we say feeding the hungry is God-like. Instead of God frees the captive, freeing the captive is God-like. Clothing the naked is God-like. Bringing peace to the world is God-like. Being holy is God-like. Mitzvot are opportunities for humans to become God-like, to become holy. In Jewish tradition, we are not commanded to believe in God. God exists with or without our belief. However, we are commanded to act like God, to bring holiness to the world, to bring comfort and hope to the world, to perfect the world in the way of God, l'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai. This is the goal of Jewish living. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses makes it clear that care for the stranger too is an attribute of God. And I quote, "For the eternal your God is God supreme and eternal one supreme, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. God defends the cause of the orphan and the widow and befriends the stranger, providing food and clothing. You too must befriend the stranger, for you were strangers in Egypt." The theological basis for this, and an important principle in Jewish ethics, is imitatio Dei, the moral imitation of God. or as the rabbis call it, walking in God's ways. As we have seen, the principle is laid out in the injunction to be holy, for God is holy. And if God's essential nature is love and compassion, then we are to be loving and compassionate. This can be regarded as the moral demand implicit in being created in the image of God, which is not just a statement of how we are, but a summons to what we must aspire to be. In the final words of the Haftarah this morning that Jenny read for us, this aspiration is summed up by the prophet Micah. People tell you what is good, but what does the Eternal One require of you? Only to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. In his impressive article, Jewish Ethics Regarding Refugees, Suriel Rashi, senior lecturer at Ariel University in Israel, writes, refugees who flee across the borders of various countries to save their lives today are human beings in distress and danger. According to Jewish ethics, as derived from scripture and its commentaries over the last 2,000 years, aid must be given to foreign refugees, even those who might be hostile. It must be done because it's one of the things that is right and proper for a person to do, because it is clearly in the realm of reciprocal responsibility between different nations and people, and because it engenders the attribute of mercy. I'm going to leave the final word today to the late Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. And these words are from a sermon entitled Loving the Stranger, in which he imagines God asking, why should you not hate the stranger? Because you once stood where he stands now. You know the heart of the stranger because you were once a stranger in the land of Egypt. If you are human, so is he. If he is less than human, so are you. You must fight the hatred in your heart as I once fought the greatest ruler and the strongest empire in the ancient world on your behalf. I made you into the world's archetypal strangers so that you would fight for the rights of strangers, for your own and those of others, wherever they are, whoever they are, whatever the color of their skin or the nature of their culture, because though they are not in your image, they are nonetheless in mine. There is only one reply strong enough to answer the question, why should I not hate the stranger? Because the stranger is me.